We love control. Humans love control. This is the problem. This is the thing. At least in the United States, 20 times more people are afraid of flying than driving. One is very safe, and one is very dangerous. All other machines will fail in the same way. This is a world where we are so addicted to our device, we can fail over and over and over in exactly the same way. We have to start preparing for tremendous change. The world is going to change more tomorrow than it did today, and that is simply going to accelerate, and change is going to be very hard. We gave you tools. Is AI going to come back and kill us?
ishlash va yaratish imkonini beruvchi vositalarning muallifi Zack Kass janoblarini taklif etamiz. Marhamat.
Zack Kass, architect of the future in artificial intelligence. Zack Kass is a name synonymous with innovation and progress. With over 14 years of experience in artificial intelligence, he has shaped future technologies that transform industries and impact lives. As the former head of go-to-market at OpenAI, Zack led groundbreaking AI solutions for global brands like Coca-Cola, Boeing, and the White House, redefining business strategies and setting new standards for the future. More than an expert, Zack is a visionary who views AI as a tool to create a smarter, brighter, and more humane world. Please join me in welcoming Zack Kass to the stage.
Hi. It's good to see you all. Thanks so much for having me. This is my first time in Uzbekistan, so that's fun. Thanks for the warm welcome. Thank you everyone for being here. Yeah, we're gonna have a really fun afternoon and evening, and I'm particularly excited to spend this time with you. Before we start, oh great, slides on the board. I will say that I'm particularly excited to see the growth that Central Asia has experienced, in particular in Tashkent. And we'll talk more about, I think, what that means for the world. But if Uzbekistan and Tashkent are any trend, the world proves that it gets better all the time. And the amount of growth, the amount of prosperity that's come to this region, even in the last 10 years, is really remarkable and something to be very proud of. I used to start telling people where we were by showing people videos and explanations, visual representations of the technology, and that was pretty problematic because things started moving too quickly. And now, instead of saying, hey, here's what AI can do, and showing a video, I instead just have a very simple statement, which is that we are now building machines with human intellectual equivalents. That's what's happening. It's the easiest way that I know to explain technology today to someone that doesn't quite understand. And the amazing thing about human intellectual equivalence is that there's a lot of things that it is, and there are a lot of things that it isn't. And we'll explore that today. But critically right now, something very, very important is happening, which is that as these machines are getting exceptionally good, they're also getting very cheap. They're getting very inexpensive, and this is counter-narrative. Most people, when you ask them, is AI getting more or less expensive, they say, oh, it's getting much more expensive. And that's true on a training basis, but it's not true on an inference basis. And in fact, the cost to run these models is declining precipitously. And this is so important for a lot of reasons. One, this reflects all GPT-4 equivalent models. Compression is working, these models are getting smaller, they're getting more efficient. Two, anytime a critical resource declines in cost this much, let alone this quickly, there is an incredible economic event. We saw this with water, we saw this with foodstuffs, we saw this with electricity, and we're seeing it with the internet. The world gets better when important things get less expensive, and this is true everywhere. And the more that AI declines in cost, the better the world will get. And that's so exciting. The last reason this is important is that if you're worried about a world where OpenAI runs everything, this is the best evidence we have that actually that won't be true. That in fact the research will commoditize, that the value will be in the application itself, not in the model. And that's also really important in a world where we want this technology to be accessible and ubiquitous. The further it declines in cost, the better. We're also much further than most people realize, and I say this pretty humbly at this point, but the technology is moving at an incredible pace. And most people are pretty good at looking at what their ChatGPT app can do at any given moment and saying, this is what we are capable of. But the technology is so much further than that now. OpenAI just hinted at OpenAI 01, the reasoning model. Pretty exciting. Apple is coming out with Apple Intelligence, which is their agentic AI product. This is still just scratching the surface for what we know the science can do. Olfactory, models that can smell, dexterity, models that are capable of far more touch, and major improvements in computer vision are coming pretty soon. And then critically, and we'll talk more about this, I think we are much earlier than most people realize. I teach a class at the University of Virginia in the United States, and the way we start every class, the first assignment is I ask students to pick a century between 2000 and 2000 BC. And I ask them to explain the modern world to someone in their century. That's the assignment. You can do it right now. It takes no time. And what you find out after you actually gather a bunch of these assignments is that after 1900, it does not matter what century you picked. It's an equivalent challenge. That's because circa electricity, the world starts to change in an incredible way. We are very clearly at this point on a superlinear trajectory. We are experiencing exponential changes to the human experience. We don't realize it because we're in it. But imagine trying to explain the moon landing to someone in 1900. We hadn't yet flown a plane. That would happen in 1903. But 69 years later, the Apollo project successfully puts a man on the moon. That's incredible. That is unfathomable. So given this, given that we're building exceptional machines that are getting exceptionally inexpensive, given that we're both much further and much earlier than we realize, the question obviously is, where are we going? What happens next? This is where I spend most of my time now. I'm a researcher, a writer, a speaker, and a consultant. I run an advisory firm, and the advisory firm's job is to help governments and large companies try to figure out what the next 20 years looks like. And I will start by saying that I don't expect anyone to believe everything I'm about to say. I'm not offended at all. You can call me crazy. I get it all the time. But if you suspend disbelief, you'll have a bit more fun. Because I think where we're going is pretty remarkable. We'll start with the easy stuff. This is the easy stuff. There are going to be 3 phases of AI integration into our lives. We are in the first phase, which is the enhanced application phase. You know enhanced applications because you use them all the time. If someone says, do you use AI, what they're asking is, do you open an AI native app, or do you open apps that are supercharged by AI, and do you use them regularly? A lot of people do now, right? An incredible percentage of the world is now exposed to enhanced applications. These enhanced applications are pretty good. They're getting us about 20 to 30% more productive, we think. A study that I did with Bain said about 20%, McKinsey study said about 30. That's good. And it's good because it comports to the world we live in, so we don't actually have to change a whole lot of behavior. You just use your apps that now have AI and it supercharges you a little. But it doesn't take advantage of all the things AI can do, and that's where autonomous agents come in. Agentive AI. Who's familiar with agentive AI? Show of hands. Autonomous agents? You can show them proudly. Your students. Some of you? Okay. I have exciting news for the rest of you. In the near future, you will start assigning tasks and goals to AI, and it will execute those tasks and goals across your applications and web experiences. You will no longer go into apps for everything you need to do inside of that app. Booking a trip, which happens across a bunch of experiences, might happen through a single agent. And this is what Apple Intelligence wants the world to look like. It's a Siri that works, basically. But that also doesn't take full advantage of AI. And the third phase, and the one that is certainly coming, is the natural language operating system. And this is really exciting for a lot of reasons. First, this phase is going to be marked critically by a very important moment, which is that we will go from carrying our devices around, our cell phones, our laptops, to wearing them. We will wear devices probably within the next 15 years. My guess, and all the signs point to a pair of glasses and a watch. Those are the two devices that we will likely wear. The second thing that happens with the natural language operating system, and I think the much more interesting one, is that machines will actually start to communicate with us the way we communicate with each other. This is going to be a major shift in computing. Something remarkable I observed the week that ChatGPT came out. I went home to my hometown in Santa Barbara, California. My mom was the 30th registered user outside of OpenAI to use ChatGPT. And my mom, for a bit of background, is a very smart woman. She's a doctor, but she's not very good at technology. She types full sentences into Google and struggles with the results. And I watched my mom for the first time open ChatGPT and communicate with it the way she expected to communicate with me. And it was this glimpse into the future, this realization that in fact, the future would be determined not by how well you had learned how to use a machine. And that solves the digital divide. That solves this incredible problem that we face right now, where a major percentage of the world cannot participate in the economy. And prosperity will be found through the natural language operating system, where everyone will have access to machines because it will not require that you learn how to use them. And that's super exciting. So given this, basically what we now know is that the world will soon have access to fully integrated, effectively unmetered intelligence. Unmetered intelligence is a term that Boris Power and I coined about 3 years ago to describe what we thought would happen in the future. It's the idea that basically intelligence will become free. And I use the term intelligence carefully because there are a lot of things that we will still pay for. There are a lot of ways that we will differentiate. But in a world where we have human intelligence at machine scale that's fully integrated, something incredible is going to happen, pretty obviously. And my theory at this point is that we are entering the next renaissance. We are entering the next chapter of human exploration and human expansion. The first renaissance was marked by major updates to political systems, to commerce systems, to how fast we ran, to how high we jumped, the way we built buildings. And ultimately, it was marked by something very specific, which is an expansion of human potential. And the next renaissance will be defined in the same way. A massive expansion of human potential. What one person can do today will pale in comparison to what one person can do tomorrow. And we are already seeing this. Sam Altman, OpenAI CEO, has a prophecy that we will see a $1 billion company of one person within the next 3 years, a unicorn of one. This prophecy you don't have to agree with on the timeline, but it directionally makes sense. It's the idea that value creation will decline in cost such that anyone is going to be capable of so much more. People are terrified. These metal cages are not very inviting. So Otis Elevator, having met the technological threshold, having built a machine that is empirically safe, that works, now has to meet the societal threshold, has to convince people to ride it. So they go back to the drawing board and they come up with 3 ideas to convince people to ride in the elevator. The first, they put a mirror in the back of every elevator, so that when you walk in, you'll be distracted by your own image. The second, they put music in the elevator, so when you walk in, you'll be entertained. And the third, they put an operator in the elevator. They put a physical person in the elevator to convince you that there is someone in control. And also, because if this person could ride up and down all day without dying, then you could too. And it worked. It convinced people to ride in the elevator. These analog changes moved the societal threshold. And that obviously is kind of fun. It's an interesting allegory. But then it asks the question, what's our elevator? What is our elevator? And it turns out we have a lot of elevators. We have more elevators than any generation ever because we have moved more technological thresholds. So then we started studying modern societal thresholds, and we came up, I think, with the most important, the single societal threshold that will tell us how AI will move. It's the autonomous vehicle.
The autonomous vehicle. In the United States, 50,000 people will die this year on our roadways. Globally, that number is 1.3 million. 95% of those fatalities are human error. The obvious solution to this problem is autonomous vehicles. Why then do autonomous vehicles poll at 25% approval? Why are people so disinterested in autonomous vehicles? What is going on? So we try to figure it out. We've come up with the 3 reasons I think that societal thresholds do not move with respect to AI with the spotlight on autonomous vehicles. The first, we love control. Humans love control. We are fascinated by the idea that we can get behind these very heavy machines, put our foot on the pedal, turn a wheel, and move them around. The idea that we would lose that is very upsetting to some people. In fact, many people describe the car as like the ultimate expression of freedom for themselves. The second reason is that technological thresholds are just moving too quickly now. There's an incredible asymmetry of information that already exists in the world. At least in the United States, 20 times more people are afraid of flying than driving, despite the fact that one is very safe and one is very dangerous. That asymmetry of information exists everywhere. It's why we don't risk adjust very well. But something else is going on, which is technological thresholds are moving so fast now that most people don't even know what a machine is capable of. I bet most people in this room don't know how many people today rode in autonomous vehicles on a freeway without incident. That number in the United States alone is about 200,000. That's how many people are already riding autonomously. Most people don't know this. And the real issue here is as technological thresholds move faster and faster, it will be very hard for us to know when we should move the societal threshold because we don't actually know what technological thresholds are capable of. But the last reason is the most important. And this is the one that you will stare at and you will think about for a few weeks, hopefully longer. Humans have incredible tolerance for human failure, and we have none for machine failure. This is the problem. This is the thing. This is why we can observe drunk driver after drunk driver claim countless innocent lives. But if a Tesla on autopilot swerves into the wrong lane, everyone gets mad. Shut the whole thing down. There's something remarkable going on here. For what it's worth, I think this is true for 2 reasons. The first reason is that when we observe a machine fail, our assumption is all other machines will fail in the same way. This idea of systemic failure. This, of course, is wrong because observing a machine failing gives us the opportunity to make sure that no machine ever fails that way. And of course, humans do not possess that feature. We can fail over and over and over in exactly the same way. The other reason this is true, and this is super fascinating to me, is that we don't have any empathy for machines. When we watch another human fail, we have exceptional empathy. This is why there are 2 kinds of Olympians who are celebrated. Those who win the gold and those who really struggle. Right? Olympians who really struggle come home to a big welcome because we know what it's like. Our heart goes out to them. When a machine breaks, we have no empathy. And this is interesting for all sorts of reasons, but this is the thing that governments and societies are going to talk about for a long time. This is going to be the thing that complicates our progress. Our ability to figure out how to effectively risk adjust and to allow for more machine failure in order to drive more progress in this world. I don't have any answers, by the way. It's just something we have to think about. And of course, all of this then leads me to the next thing, which is like, in a world where we're doing a bunch of worrying about things that might happen, that probably won't, and we're worrying about a bunch of things that happen that don't matter, it obviously presents the most important question, which is what are the things that AI might actually do to compromise our lives? What are the things we should worry about? And I think about this quite a bit now. What are the things that we should actually be focused on, the ways in which the AI revolution could complicate and compromise our lives? And I think there are basically 4. And the first is my theory of idiocracy. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's the theory that says at some point we will have machines that are so smart, so brilliant that the value of critical thinking will decline and we will start to devolve intellectually. For what it's worth, I don't actually think this is going to happen. I give this pretty low odds. All of you students are so much smarter and so much more capable than I was when I was in college. You have tools at your disposal that I could not have fathomed. And that will make you smarter. Every generation is smarter than the last. This is empirically proven. I don't think this trend will stop. But it is worth considering. It is worth considering what happens if we solve for critical thinking. What will we do? But the other thing I worry about, and this one I worry about a little bit more because we are seeing these patterns, is my theory of dehumanization. The theory of dehumanization says that at some point there will be a material percentage of the population that is more interested in their virtual reality than their physical one. And some of you are nodding because I know you know what this means. This is a world where we are so addicted to our device that we actually find ourselves checking out of physical experiences. And the problem with this world is that these addictive experiences are only going to become more addictive because of AI. You will have more and more opportunities to lose yourself in your device. And younger generations are presenting an incredibly dangerous trend of anxiety, depression, disassociation, reclusiveness. A lot of people are already opting out of their physical experiences and into virtual ones. And one of the things that I advocate for, among others, is that we go back to building great physical, livable, walkable communities. It's one thing to policy social media away, and for what it's worth, I don't think we should let young people use it. It's another thing to actually just create better alternatives. One of the things I believe in most now is creating a world, creating a physical community that you want to be a part of. People are so obsessed with the technological experiences that will give them advantages in AI, and I'm here to tell you, I bet it's the physical ones. I bet it is your physical community that gives you more advantages in the future, because most of the other things will be solved for. The third thing I worry about is job displacement. Who here is worried that your job or the job you want might be automated by AI? Who here is worried that someone's job in this room will be automated by AI? That's right. This is, by the way, called the zombie apocalypse phenomenon. This is a real thing. Everyone believes that they would survive a zombie apocalypse and their idiot neighbor would certainly die. This is a real thing. I'm also worried about job displacement. And on behalf of the AI community, I'm here to tell you that I think it's a real thing. But I don't actually think it's a thing for the reason that most people worry about it. Most people are very worried about the economic consequences of job loss. Most people, when you ask them, are you worried about job automation, they spend a bunch of time saying and thinking, yeah, what will we do for food? How will we make money if AI automates our work? And this is pretty misguided, I think, for two reasons. One, we've observed a bunch of industrial revolutions at this point. They are all economically great for the world. Jobs get better. They get safer, they pay more, and unemployment declines. There is more work on the back end of both. But industrial revolutions do not correlate to happiness. There's an incredible thing that happens where the standard of living improves, but the comfortability somehow declines. Even if the pie continues to grow, we may feel aggrieved because we are losing our identity. And the theory here is an identity displacement crisis. And I'm here to tell you, I think this is going to happen. I am fairly certain that this is going to be one of the great costs of your generation, and mine too. Our idea that we will have a job and a career that we can scale linearly and sort of pick at any given moment feels like it may go away. Such that even if we have access to incredible wonders beyond our imagination, we may feel really hurt. And it's something to think about. Can we find purpose outside of our work? The last thing I worry about is existentialism. Who here is worried that AI might kill us all? That's pretty confident.
Pretty good. I'm worried about it. I'm worried about it too, if it makes you feel better. But again, I don't worry about it for the reason most people worry about it. Most people worry about this existential crisis, and they talk about or think about Skynet, right? Is the AI going to come back and, kill us? And that's just not the scientific theory. That's not actually what we think is going to happen. What we think is going to happen works something like this. If I put a wheel on this device, and I train it on a very specific task, which was to get me a bottle of water outside this room. That's the only task I train it on. I put it on the ground, I push go. It rolls off, and it comes back with a bottle of water. I've got my water, I'm happy, no problem, right? Well, the problem is, I don't actually know what's happened outside this room, and it could be super bad. There could be water spilled everywhere, there could be a table flipped over, some student could be huddled in the corner that used to be holding my water bottle, right? My bad. I didn't mean for these things to happen. I just didn't specifically say to this device, don't cause harm. Don't do anything mean. Wait in line. Find water that someone else isn't drinking. We call these unintended consequences. Unintended consequences are really scary in a world where machines are more and more capable of things that they and we have not calculated. And the pursuit of understanding and mitigating unintended consequences has a name in AI, and it's the alignment problem. And the alignment problem asks the most important question that we have to answer, and the one that you will hear about for a long time, probably forever. How do we train a machine to be effective at accomplishing a task and concern itself with the planetary experience, the consequences of its actions? That's the alignment problem. And the cool thing about it is it has an organic allegory. All of you who are children, and some of you who are parents, you were raised to be brave and capable and effective and cunning, and you were raised to be kind and caring and compassionate. And it's not sufficient for your parents to say, break all the rules, follow all the rules, put yourself first, put others first. These things don't actually create well-adjusted humans. And so our parents raise us on a set of values. And these values inform the millions of decisions that we make every day. And the fascinating thing about the human alignment problem is it is the best evidence I think we have that humans are inherently good. Because two things are true about human alignment. One, we get more aligned as we get older. And two, we get more aligned as time goes on. That's pretty good evidence that we will solve for alignment long-term with AI. And this is the most important thing that we have to solve for now, because the risk with AI is not that we wake up one day and machines say, I'm going to kill you now. The risk is that we assign tasks to machines that have terrible unintended consequences. That's the risk. That's the existential threat. But given that there are some scary things that can happen, we obviously have to talk about all the good things that can happen. So one of the things I spend a bunch of time doing is exploring the ways that AI revolution is going to reduce suffering and increase joy. And spoiler alert, it's going to be awesome. A bunch of incredible things are about to happen. Your lives are going to be remarkable in ways that we cannot fathom. And the first thing that I think is going to happen, and I mentioned this earlier, is we are about to see an incredible expansion of human potential. This is coming. What one person can do today will pale in comparison to what one person can do tomorrow. Globally, we're about 70% more productive today than we were in 1995. That seems like a pretty good number. That's pretty reasonable. My prediction is we will be 1,000 times more productive in 20 years, maybe more. We are going to create value at such a low cost that amazing things are going to happen. And this introduces a very interesting question, which is if you gave everyone ChatGPT times 5, some incredible app that could do so many things, what would happen? And it sort of asks the question, what if we had, instead of 10,000 people studying the cure for cancer, which by the way is about the number on Earth, what if we had 1 million people studying the cure for cancer? What if we had 1 billion people? The next thing that's going to happen because of AI is we're going to have a wave of scientific breakthroughs. Material sciences, particle sciences, bio and life sciences. We are going to solve fusion. We are going to solve quantum computing. We will eventually solve nanotechnology. These things are going to happen, and they will lead to an incredible wave of other discoveries. And my prediction, by the way, is that we cure cancer and we cure neurodegenerative disease within the next 30 years. This is going to happen. It's going to be remarkable what we discover in very, very near future. And as a result of this, and as a result of the expansion of human potential, we're going to have a massive deflationary event. The cost of goods and services are going to decline. This will happen. The incredible thing about being a human is that we have this amazing privilege and honor to take the luxuries of our time and turn them into staples. This happens every time. Every generation takes their most important things and makes them less expensive. Our parents did it, their parents did it, we are doing it. And this is so exciting and so important for so many reasons. The cost of goods and services will decline, the world will get less expensive to live in by an incredible degree, to the point that in the very near future, my prediction is that we all live in a world where everyone has access to the goods and services they need to survive. And the last thing that I think happens is we get a lot more time. My prediction is we live in a world with a lot more time, and we live in a world with a lot more time both longitudinally and laterally. We will live longer. I think we will live biblically long. I think that's going to happen. I also think we will have a lot more time in the day. And I worry about this a little bit, I will tell you, because even as I talk, many of you cannot get off your phone. And I'm not actually offended. I don't blame you. We gave you tools that are addictive beyond our comprehension and asked why you stopped spending time paying attention to people. Right? The device has become so addictive that even now, as I talk, some of you can't look up. And the obvious problem here is not that you're addicted to your phone and that's bad. It's that in a world where you have a ton more time, will you actually know how to spend it? People come to me all the time after a talk or send me an email and they say, hey, I was promised that the internet would make me so much more productive. I'm not any more productive. I work longer than I ever have. And I remind them of two things. One, the average work week globally is about 20% less today than it was in 1960. We work a lot less. Two, I ask to see their screen time. I ask people who think that they are working too much to see their screen time, because my bet is that most people have become so addicted to their device they can no longer actually separate these things. How much time they're spending on their device from how much time they're working. And so my challenge to you, my first, is to have a more deliberate relationship with your device. Simply think more about the time you're spending on your phones relative to the time you're spending with friends and family. And that leads me to how I think everyone should start preparing. Because a bunch of things are about to happen. And these are rules that I now pass to companies and to individuals. The first thing that I believe in so much, we have to start preparing for tremendous change. The world is going to change more tomorrow than it did today. And that is simply going to accelerate. And change is going to be very hard. As a result, one of the things that everyone needs to start adjusting for is the idea of adaptability as a strategy. It is not sufficient to say, hey, our culture allows us to change. It is imperative now that we say, we are designed to change. Our entire business is designed to change because the wavelength, the period between incredible events is now shortening. The only thing we know is that everything will adjust and will upgrade. And so as a result, one of the things we have to now do is learn how to learn. And this is the best advice I can give students. This is the only advice I now give students. People ask me all the time, what should I study in college? All the time, what should I study in college? And I have a really disappointing answer for them. It doesn't matter. It does not matter what you study in college. There's a declining correlation between your major and your economic outcome. And unless you want to be a doctor, and I know some of you do, it basically doesn't matter anymore. So study something you love. Study something you love. Become fascinated by something. Obsess over information and novel concepts. Minutiae.
The act of obsessing, the act of becoming fascinated is probably the most interesting thing you can do in a world where you know you will have to continue to do that for as long as you live. You cannot simply say, I am this thing anymore. That job is not going to get you forever. And by the way, that job might even be the job that you do. Don't study something because it gets you an economic outcome. Study something because you are so excited to learn. And the act of learning prepares you for the future. The last thing I believe, and this is the thing we talk to companies about a bunch, everyone asks me, and a lot of you would too if we were in person, what is OpenAI going to build next? That's what people ask me all the time. What's OpenAI going to build next? What's AI going to do next? It's a fine question. I'm happy to answer it. It's a lot of fun. No one ever asks me, what will AI not do next? No one asks me, what will OpenAI not build next? And I have some pretty interesting ideas here. And by the way, this is why I get out of bed so happy every day. Because in a world where we start preparing for the negative space, what I call the AI negative space, it actually probably means that we are going to start optimizing for our most humanistic qualities. There is an obsession in the world right now with being the smartest. I think it's a lagging indicator from what used to be. I have no issue with that, but I don't actually think it will determine the true economic outcomes, because in a world where we all start to know the same amount, where we all have access to information, it won't actually matter what we know, it will matter how we process it and how we make each other feel. This is already happening. Professional services around the world are moving from knowledge-based to actually much more humanistic. Wealth managers don't make you more money anymore, real estate agents don't get you better prices on houses. Something fascinating is going on, and very recently I was reminded of this. My dad's a cancer doctor, and he was given a Lifetime Achievement Award by the Breast Cancer Association of America about a month ago, and I went to this award ceremony. And at this award ceremony, an old patient of his stood up and talked about my dad. And for the first 30 seconds of her 5-minute talk, she talked about her patient outcomes. She said, I survived breast cancer, and I went on to live this amazing life. And for the next 4.5 minutes, she talked about how my dad made her feel. She talked about the fact that anyone at this point could have administered her the therapy that my father administered. She got a prognosis, and she went and got a bunch of opinions. Everyone said they should do the same thing. And then she said something I will never forget, and a thing I repeat constantly, which is, in a world where the therapy itself is a commodity, the bedside manner is no longer a feature, it's the product. How we make each other feel will probably end up being the most important determination of our success. If you can be anything, if you can practice anything, practice adaptability, practice courage, practice curiosity, practice wisdom, practice empathy. Be the best human that you can be. These are probably going to be the things that actually move you furthest through the world. The last thing I will say is this. The future is great. This is the best day ever to be born. I am sure of this. Today is the best day ever to be born, and tomorrow will be too. A lot of people struggle to believe this, though. A lot of people actually struggle with the idea that the future is getting better. And the simple reason for this is that we are now overexposed to negative information and underexposed to positive information. That's why. That's why this is going on. And so my challenge to everyone is, instead of putting yourself in some loop where you're constantly thinking and talking about ways in which the world will get worse, start practicing optimism. Go back to your dining room tables, go back to your dorm rooms, go back to your labs, talk about a world with a sense of optimism and hope, where we've cured cancer, where we've solved fusion energy, where every child can have access to an AI-powered tutor. These things are almost certainly coming. And what I've learned in all my travels is that everyone wants a reason to be optimistic. And tomorrow, you can be that reason. Thank you so much. If you want to follow along, we have a newsletter that we update by the week.